there's something out there in this world that is so dreaded. It's a disease that people fear, that have taken our family members and our friends' lives, that have made people go through a lot of turmoil, treatment, pain, heartache. And it's that dreaded word that begins with a C. And I never, ever, ever thought that I would experience it. November 2017, I was just in my house, and I was brushing my teeth one morning, and I noticed a slight swelling on the side of my neck, and it was unusual. There was no pain, nothing. Anyway, after discussion with my husband and a visit to the GP, we discovered that it was a cyst. Now, cysts can be pretty unharmful and, nothing to be worried about. But further tests were done, and I remember the moment where my husband and I walked into his office, and we were just expecting very ordinary results from a test. We were actually on our way to have a night away in a hotel, just the two of us, while our kids were with the grandparents, and we were very excited. But we just quickly stopped off at the doctor's office to receive the results, and he sat us down, and he had a little bit of a strange look on his face. And I remember for a split second just thinking, uh-oh. But then I kind of brushed it off, and he said, "I'm so sorry to tell you that you have what's called papillary thyroid cancer." Moments where you think, this can't be happening to me. Surely not me. In all my life, I'm 35 years old. At the time I was 33. In all my life, I had never been to the hospital for a health condition. I'd been to the hospital once when I'd had an accident and fallen over, and I'd been to the hospital to give birth to my children, but I've never had a health condition. So I would consider myself, just a regular healthy person with no history of illness. And this was like I don't know, like a moment of feeling like this was someone else's life. I felt like I'd stepped out of my body, and I was in the corner of the doctor's room listening to someone else being told about something happening in their life, the cancer, the word cancer. And I didn't really know what to do. My husband and I just gripped hands really tightly with each other, and I think we were both in a state of disbelief. I mean, the good thing at that point was that the doctor told us that it wasn't serious. It was a fairly slow-growing, kind of non-fatal kind. It wasn't aggressive, and it was treatable, so that's all good. But what really struck me in that time in the doctor's office was a second feeling that just kind of consumed me. And it was this... It almost felt like a wave was coming over me, and that was the feeling of peace. And I didn't understand it because there was no reason for me to be feeling peace at that point. The only feeling I should have been feeling was probably fear, anger, feeling of real sadness or upset. And I had little bits of all of that, but the significant emotion that I was feeling is peace. And I just knew that peace wasn't coming from me, and it wasn't coming from my circumstances, and it wasn't coming from what was happening. It was coming from God. And I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know why he was giving me that peace. I didn't know what he was trying to tell me. But all I knew that he was giving it to me, and it's exactly what I needed at that time. So we went back, we carried on, we went to our hotel, we phoned our parents, let them know, and we spent the evening praying. It was very unlike what we thought we would be doing on our staycation, but it's what we ended up doing. We prayed, we sat there, we dwelled on him, and we clung to him because there was nothing else we could turn to at that time. There was nothing we could draw understanding from. There was no one we could go to kind of fix the situation or wake us up from the dream. So we did all that we could, and that was cling to God. And it was good. It was good. So I don't want to walk you through the details of everything that transpired. I'm here today, which is great. I went through treatment and a surgery. I had my thyroid removed, and then I went through some radiation treatment. But what I really want to highlight to you guys today is just a couple of things I learned through the whole process. So I'll begin with the first one, and the first one I believe is dependency versus independency. Now, if we look at the world around us and we look at what social media and companies and basically the world, society tells us these days, it encourages independence. You know, when we're children, we're encouraged to be independent, walk and eat and play independently. That's all part of growing up. And that's true, you know, in a physical sense, we're meant to be independent. But actually, we are created to be dependent beings. We're created to be dependent on someone bigger than us. And when we try and take away that requirement to be dependent, and we try to turn it into an independency, we will never ever succeed at that. We will end up failing in our need to be independent because we weren't meant to be independent. Let me try and break that down a little bit or explain it in the context of what I mean. Now, I said to you before that I'd never been in a situation where I'd had health issues. And I know that many people have. Many people have struggled with health issues in and out of hospitals, or, you know, it's been a thing that they have had to either depend on medication, doctors, depend on a lot of prayer and God. And, you know, there's been other things in my life that I've had to be dependent on God for. But health has never been one of them. And maybe I've always considered this an area of, maybe I've had a sense of pride about that. Like, I've never been in the hospital, never had to do this, never had to do that. I don't think I actually thought that, but it might have been something inside of me. And when I went through the situation, I now, for the rest of my life, I have to take a thyroxine pill every single day because I don't have a thyroid. That's part of the treatment. And any forms I fill out about medication, I'll always have to take yes, I'm on medication. And to me, that makes me feel really dependent. I have to do that forever. And I've never had to. But what I've learned through the situation is that even in the things where we feel we are in control and we are in charge or we've got it all together, God wants those areas of our life. And while I know He didn't cause this to happen to me, I believe He allowed it to happen to me for a reason. And a big part of that reason is increasing my dependency on Him. So as I laid this down before Him, as I said, okay, God, you are completely in control because I have no way of being in control of the situation. I can trust in the doctors to surgically remove my thyroid and give me what I need. But ultimately, the outcome of this, whether it comes back, whether I'm fully healed, whether the radiation is successful, the surgery is successful, that is completely up to you, Lord. So I learned a whole new level of dependency on God through the situation. And it's actually a very comfortable place to be in once I release that to Him. Because like I said, we are created to be dependent on Him and not be independent of Him. So when we try to do something that may feel better to us, when we release that control to Him, and when we release that area of our life to Him, it's actually really free. The second thing that I wanted to bring to your attention is that when we go through things like this, as difficult or as easy as they might be, they allow us to experience the supernatural power of God. Now, I haven't experienced His healing. I'll say that right now. I haven't experienced the supernatural healing of God in this area of my life, but I've experienced so much other supernatural power from God. When I went through this situation, I felt like I was a stronger person. I felt, as I shared the news with people and as I told them what I was going through, I felt this strength in me that I didn't know I had. And that's how I knew that it was God's strength in me. One of my friends actually said when I first told her that this is what was happening and that I was okay, that I knew God, whatever the outcome, that God was in control. She later told another friend of ours, she said, I don't think that Teesh knows. I don't think she has fully accepted what's happening to her. She seems to be in denial of what's happening. And this friend later came back and told me, the other friend, that she'd said this. And I was like, really? And then I realized what she was seeing in me was she was seeing a strength, and what she saw as denial of me, of maybe the joy or the peace or the calmness that she saw, was not a natural reaction to a diagnosis of cancer. So her response to that was, Teesh is not really understanding what's happening to her. But actually, it's not about me not understanding. It's about me feeling all those emotions, the joy, the peace, the strength, despite what I was going through. And I'm not a strong person. Me as a human being, I'm not strong. I'm weak. I'm vulnerable. I'm fully flawed. But I know that in that moment, what was given to me was supernatural. The peace, the joy, the strength that I was able to feel was God-given. And when that friend told me that the other friend had said that, I was like, wow, she saw something in me that was unusual. And she saw God. She didn't know what she was seeing, but that's what she was seeing. And so I was able to experience the power of God, but in another way, others were also able to experience through me. So there's something so powerful when we allow the work of the Spirit inside of us. When we let Him take control and we lay all those fears, anxieties, worries down, and we say, Lord, I'm yours. I have no place else to go. I don't want to run to anything else but you. He works in us and He gives us more than we need. So I still didn't know what the outcome was going to be. This was before I'd had my surgery, before I'd had my radiation, that this friend said this. So it was not because my circumstances were any better. It was because God was doing something in me. And that leads me to my next point, which is when we go through situations of difficulty and sickness and pain, it's not just about us. Sometimes we can get into this little bubble of thinking, woe is me. Oh, why does this happen to me? It's terrible, it's awful. And often it is terrible and awful. But God's kingdom is huge. And we, as being part of His kingdom, are these tiny little pawns. And sometimes we it's almost like a microscopic view. We only see our little world and what's happening to us, good or bad. And sometimes I feel like we just need to zoom out and we need to get a bigger view of God's kingdom. We'll never have a full view of His kingdom, only He has that. But we are able to not just view our circumstances and see what's happening around us. And through this whole situation, I had a wonderful friend. Because of the treatment that I was going through, the radiation, I wasn't able to stay at home for 3 weeks. I had to actually stay away from my children because of the radiation, and I couldn't see them for 21 days, which at the time my children were 3 and 1, and it was what I imagined it to be was heartbreaking. I didn't know how I would be able to do that. I had to find a place to stay, but I also had to deal with the emotions of being away from my family. And God opened up this door in an amazing way to stay with a friend who at the time was not a close friend. I didn't know her that well. But in those 3 weeks of spending time with her, God did something amazing in our friendship, in her life and in my life. And she would say to this day that I was brought into her home for that specific time for her. And I know that I was brought into her home for that specific time for me. And it showed me that that was yet another reason God allowed this to happen, because his plans are so much bigger and so much greater than what we could ever plan for ourselves. And as much as I would never have liked to have had cancer to begin with, I know that if he allows something to happen in my life, there is a reason for it, and there is good that will come from it. So I just want to encourage you today to realize it's not just about you. And it's hard to think that way when we're going through hardship. But God is so faithful, and he desires us to just put our trust in him completely. And he wants us to look at him so that he can then say to us, watch and see what I will do. And to be in that position of complete trust, knowing that this good, amazing, wonderful God loves us so much that we can say, okay, God, no matter what, I will trust. I am yours to do and to will. So, I just want to wrap things up by saying, if I didn't have faith and hope in something or someone bigger than me, I don't know how I would have been able to deal with that situation. Even to this day, I'm going through, I have to go for regular scans and blood tests, and of course I have to take my thyroxine, because at any point this could come back. But I do not live in fear of it, because I know that if it happens, if it comes back, God's in control, and he's got a plan for it, and he's going to use the situation to work for good, not just in my life, but in other people's lives. So I just want to encourage you today, if you're facing a similar situation, if you're battling with cancer or a serious illness, know that there's a God out there with a big, big plan. And he's a God who is personal. He loves you. He knows every single situation in your life, and he's got a plan. And he's a God who is personal. He loves you. He knows every single situation in your life, and he's got a plan. And all he's looking for from you is a completely surrendered heart. When we get into that place of surrender, sometimes we hold on to things so tightly, whether it's fear or worry or anxiety, and it's hard work. It's hard work to hold on and to live in that place of stress and anxiety and worry and not knowing what the future holds. But sometimes we just need to let go. We just need to release. And in doing so, that might be one big scary step of relinquishing that control. But in doing so, we kind of sink back, let out a deep breath, and we just live in that place of relaxing in the loving arms of Father who is in control when we can't be. Because let's be honest, we as humans are weak, we're vulnerable, we're volatile, we're emotional, and that's fine. That's who he made us to be. But he also made us to be dependent on him, a good, perfect, wise, all-knowing, all-powerful, all-sufficient God who loves us, cares for us, and wants amazing things for us. But the first thing he wants from us is a willing heart, a heart that is willing to trust in him. That's all he requires from us. So if I can encourage you today, trust in him. He's going to use your situation for good. Hold on to him. If you're going to hold on to something, let it not be fear. Let it be God, because he is worth holding on to. My name is Teesh. It's short for Ratisha. Be blessed.